The aim of this video is to provide a brief introduction into ions and how they're formed through a process of ionization. To begin, if we look at the Bohr model here of this sodium atom, we can see the different particles that exist within the atom. In the nucleus we have positively charged protons, and surrounding the nucleus in the orbitals we have negatively charged electrons here in red. It should be noted that there are neutrons that exist in the nucleus alongside the protons, but because they're electrically neutral, they don't actually have any impact on the electrical charge of the atom. So to find out if an atom is neutral, positively charged, negatively charged, all you need to do is count up the protons and compare it to the count of the electrons. So for this sodium atom, we can see that the number of protons equals 11 and the number of electrons equals 11. So you can see there's a difference of 0. So then this implies that the atom is neutral. There's no net positive or negative electrical charge on this atom. Alright, so now that we understand that the sodium atom here is neutral as the number of positive protons equal the number of negative electrons, how do we then go from this neutral atom to an ion? This diagram here now is an example of an ion. The difference between this ion and this neutral atom is now that the number of protons does not equal the number of electrons. So, like before, we have the number of protons is equal to 11, but now if you look at the surrounding orbitals, we only have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 electrons. So we have the number of electrons has now reduced by 1, it equals 10. So now this ion is no longer electrically neutral, because as you can see, we're left, our net charge, we have a positive 1. So that's why we say that this ion is a positive ion, because there's more positive charge than it has negative charge. And this type of ion has a particular name. It's called a cation. So this is the first of two different types of ions. The first one being a positive ion and the second one being a negative ion, which I'll get onto now in a minute. So once again, the only difference between this ion and this neutral atom is that the number of protons in the ion does not equal the number of electrons, because due to some interaction, this atom has released an electron from its valence orbital, which is its outer orbital here, therefore giving this ion a net charge. So the difference between this ion and this cation over here is that it has more electrons than it does protons. So over here in the cation case, it has more protons and electrons, therefore leaving a net charge of positive 1. So it's a positively charged ion. In this situation, we have the opposite. We have more negative charge than we do positive charge. If you count the electrons in the orbitals, you'll see that we have 12 electrons and 11 protons. So you can see that we have 11 protons and 12 electrons. So we also have a net charge in this case, but the difference is that we have one more electron than we do proton, therefore giving this ion a negative net charge. So this type of ion is called anion. So we have a positive charged ion over here and we have a negatively charged ion over here called an anion. The reason why we talk about ions having more or less electrons as opposed to are we able to lose or gain a proton is generally because the protons are more tightly bound to the nucleus. It'll take a lot more energy to release a proton from the nucleus, for example, whereas the electrons, especially the valence electrons, take a lot less energy to ionize from that atom. So now that we know that we have a cation, which is a positive ion as it has more protons, and we have an anion, which is a negative ion as it has more electrons, we can now say that the process in which our neutral atom goes from neutral to electrically charged is through the process of ionization. A common example of ionization would be through the bombardment of high energy particles, such that when it interacts with a neutral atom, it has enough energy to liberate one of the outer electrons such that it forms a cation, or in other situations where the atom would absorb an electron, therefore creating an anion, which is going to be negatively charged. Another process of ionization would be through electromagnetic fields. That interaction can also cause ionization. So I hope that clarifies how we go from a neutral atom to two different types of ions, what the differences are, and how we can, by analyzing this Bohr setup model of the atom, we can tell what type of ion we're dealing with. Hope you enjoyed that video. If you don't mind giving the page a like and a subscribe, that would be great. And see you in the next video.